Ryan's character Eddie is on his own journey, and if that's where the story ends up going, then I know a lot of people on Twitter will be very happy.
911, what's your emergency?
So Buck seemed to have like a lovely time in season 7 with his like queer awakening and everything, and but season 8 he's kind of really going through it with like the boils and Gerard
Mhm.
and his breakup now. How do you think he's like grown as a character since his whole coming out arc last season?
Yeah, I think there's a level of authenticity in his life now, and it wasn't something that he was particularly consciously living an inauthentic lifestyle beforehand. He just didn't quite know what was missing, why he was not quite settled in himself. So now that he's had this discovery and unlocked this new kind of element of understanding about himself, I think that as these hiccups are happening in his life, he's at least slightly more capable of dealing with them because at least he's coming from a place of being a little bit more settled within his own skin. No pun intended on the boils front. But yeah, so he's yeah, I think he's just a little bit more standing on sturdy ground now, so that as these things come his way, he's more capable of dealing with them in a healthier way.
That's so nice. I find that so relatable. Like when you come out sort of like at a later age, you kind of look back on your life and you're like, oh my god, that kind of makes sense now. Do you think like Buck
Mm.
has had that?
Yeah, and I think that's probably relatable. I would hope so anyway, in terms of coming out or in terms of anything in your life. You look back and you're like, wow, if I had known the things that I know now about myself, I probably would have dealt with that differently. So I think it's relatable in a specific coming out way, and then I hope in a broader sense as well.
So you've said before that you decided to play Buck as bi from the start of season 7, whether he was going to have a queer storyline or not. And I just wondered if you could expand on that a little. Like, what did you do differently when you approached season 7?
Yeah, I have said that, and I do stand by it. I don't quite know how I was going to go about that. If it was going to be like longing gazes at people that we encounter on calls or what, I didn't quite have a plan in place as such. And thankfully, I didn't have to because Tim, who is the showrunner, came pretty early on in the season and said this is where we're taking it, and it was like great, what a coincidence. Um, so yeah, I don't know if I had a foolproof plan of how to enact that, but I was gonna find a way to start hopefully moving the story in that direction because I think it's a lovely story in terms of hopefully positive representation, but more than anything, I just think it felt true for the character. And actually, I think that is in the kind of grander scheme of things, even better representation that it just felt right for this character.
I feel like kind of knowing what we know about Book now, like going back and rewatching, there are times when you're kind of like, oh my god, is he like flirting with that guy? Just like all the way through, you know? He definitely has been a queer coded character like since the beginning, in my opinion.
Yeah, even like the first thing that really rings true in my head for that is I'm pretty sure it's season 1. There's a guy who is he has a tapeworm,
Yeah.
and they get into this like body fat percentage conversation, which isn't necessarily anything, but it there is something in the air there. So yeah, no, I agree. I think if you go back, the breadcrumbs, intentionally or not, have always been there.
For sure. So obviously, I'm a from an LGBTQ plus outlet, so I got to mention Buddy, because I feel like viewers love Buddy. I really love the dynamic between them. Whether if something more comes from that or just us friends and like this partnership. I especially love Buck's role in Chris's life as well. Like they have. And this whole little family unit, even like Eddie's will from season 4 as well. That was like, oh my god! But we haven't
Mm.
really seen more of that since then. So I just wondered if we can expect any more like coming up from that sort of family unit element, or if you want to see more.
Yeah, I always want to see more. I love those themes. And I appreciate you saying, whether it because I don't know either turns into anything or not. Like there's still a strong connection there regardless. So yeah, I always want to see more of that kind of quote unquote family dynamic between them. And to be honest with you, it is a subject I try and tiptoe carefully around, right? Because I do understand how important it is for some people, and at the end of the day, I don't know where the story's going to go. I can only really speak on Buck, so I tread carefully because on one hand, I don't want to tell people like, "Oh yeah, hang around, this thing is happening," and then on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, maybe it will. I can only really speak to Buck, and the other thing that I approach cautiously is not tying his sexuality to anybody else. You know, it was never tied to Tommy. It's not tied to Eddie. Obviously, it's his own journey to kind of go down. And Ryan's character Eddie is on his own journey. And if that's where the story ends up going, then I know a lot of people on Twitter will be very happy. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I regardless, I love those scenes. I love working with those people. So you know, as I've kind of always said, I'm here for wherever the story goes, and I hope people feel the audience feels satisfied with wherever the ending is.
Yeah. Like personally, I feel like if it did happen, I would think it was very cool and probably end up being like the best slow burn of all time on TV. But yeah, it's really fun, just like their dynamic, any which way it goes. I feel like the fans are always happiest when Buck is sad and struggling, for some reason. But what have been some of your favorite like Buck centric storylines throughout the whole like 8 seasons so far?
Um, you know, Pete Krause has said to me recently while we were shooting the Halloween episode this season, and obviously I bring in this dummy that turns out to be a real body, and he said, "How many times do you think we've had storyline revolving around Buck doing something stupid?" He said, I feel like if you weren't in the show, we wouldn't have any storyline." Um, I really enjoyed the Buck Begins episode, which I feel like is a kind of cop out answer that's easy to go with. But it wasn't even the backstory element. I loved the kind of heroic acts that he got to when he was stuck in this warehouse fire with this other character, and I just kind of love this back and forth between them. So that's one that really stands out. Tsunami is obviously a big highlight for me, and will be hard to top that one. I think in the duration of the show, it was just the first time I think that we went down to shoot it in Mexico, and it just really felt like, wow, this is a huge production. So to get to kind of play through that was very meaningful for me. It really felt like a I'm living my dream kind of moment. Um, I really enjoyed this season. I actually really enjoyed the Boyles episode. There's something about like getting to play ugly that was really fun and liberating. And I just enjoy when 911 is serious, and I enjoy when it's really silly. So yeah, kind of like every season, there's been a thing, and luckily, you know, they've given back a lot to do over the years. So I'm very grateful for it.
If we finish on a bit of a silly one, so imagine Buck is having a little cozy duvet day. He's on his sofa. He's got his blankets. What is he watching? What is he drinking? And what snacks does he have in your mind?
This is one of those questions, right? When people like say, you know, what song, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I can't think of any song that's ever been written. All right, let me start with snacks. I feel like Buck eats a lot. Oh, hold on, we're in the UK. I was gonna say a lot of chips, crisps. Like, and this is probably just me speaking, and I just want to eat a lot of crisps. But anytime there's a show on the scene where we are eating, I find myself constantly eating as Buck. Like it's not even really something I do in my own life, but in I'm when I'm dressed as Buck, snack, snack, snack. So something easy, some kind of crisps. I think Buck is a beer drinker. Um, so even though in my head this is like a Sunday morning, apparently he's got a beer. Why not? It's his day off. And what's he watching? That's a hard one.
I always feel like he'd be kind of a rom-com guy, maybe, because he's
Okay,
really,
well, so
but I don't
that,
know.
that's close to where I was about to go with this, right? I was gonna go. So it's some people would consider it a rom com, but I was gonna go reality, and I was
Oh
gonna
yeah,
go for like a 90 Day Fiance kind of situation.
oh yeah, yeah. I see it. I like that.
Like whole season through, all the way through on his Sunday. Chips, beer, 90 Day Fiance, one of the 50 spin-offs that they have of that show. Um, yeah, I see that for Buck on his probably uncomfortable couch that he has in his apartment. That's the best I got for you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right, great.